Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I'll catch up about the Golden Globes in a couple days. I was traveling yesterday and again today. Jim Gaffigan spoke to the LA Times about parenting, and Jim says, I would say I was a very good teen. I was very hardworking. I would say that my dad was unnecessarily annoyed by some of my behavior, and now I'm kind of like, oh, I get it. I totally get what his annoyance was, and these are your children, and you do anything for them, but there is a bafflement. I talk about it in my latest special, where you have this sweet 12-year-old, and then they change, and obviously I'm using hyperbole and exaggeration, but there is a shift, and what's so great about touring with the material is that it's a conversation, so the feedback from the audience can prove your premise or your theory, so even older parents, empty nesters can say, oh yeah, that's true. The hyperbolic humor statement you're making is only funny because it's grounded in a shared experience. Sarah Silverman spoke to the Detroit Free Press about the feeling that many women have in midlife about being more self-confident and less worried about pleasing others. Sarah said, not everybody grows with age, but it's kind of thrilling to be like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to put up with that anymore. Also, I'm in a relationship I'm so happy with. But I also know that I love being alone. A relationship has to be pretty great for me not to want to be alone. I think that's a great place to be, and it's a place I don't think I could be at a younger age. Sarah has been digging the TV show Detroiters, the 2017 series from Comedy Central that's been showing up on Netflix. My boyfriend and I are watching Detroiters again. God, I wish there were more than 2 seasons. Anytime we order dinner, we throw in Detroiters. It's such a beautiful comedy. It's very tricky to do comedy that's warm and loving, but has hardcore funny jokes. Would Sarah want to do a similar series with one of her female peers? She says, there are so many brilliant women I would love to star with. She was blown away by Kristen Melody in The Penguin and said, I was like, please, can I play her young mom? She's so brilliant. Sarah is out on tour through February 1st and said, it's funny, I've merch this time, which I usually never have. I say in the show, I just really feel like my parents would want me to monetize this. It just kills me because my dad would have worn every single thing. They would just love it. Kathy Griffin is increasingly happy with her voice and says, I sound like me again. Shouting and cursing are my love languages. I tend to yell at the audience even though I love them. I haven't lost my hustle. I love the stage. It's the only time I'm fully relaxed. It sounds corny, but I get anxiety attacks. I can't stop vomiting. I was in a restaurant recently and had to go into a corner. I had flop sweat. I was hoping nobody would recognize me. I had to get it together and drive home. She said Joan Rivers told her to keep on working and never leave a blank page on the calendar. I worked with Joan. Joan's days were packed. I worked with her around 2000, well, not around 2001. It was the fall of 2001, 2002. She would go up to Toronto or Philadelphia and do QVC and walk into the studio at 5 to 6 or 5 to 7, I guess it was a 7 o'clock show. Sit down, knock out a 2-hour show, and then go do something else. She liked to work, Joan Rivers. Kathy said, I'm cut from the same cloth. Unlike Ellen, Kathy Griffin has no plans to leave the country. I assume that's election-related. She says, I'm not moving. I own a house in Malibu I love. I have 4 dogs. I'm going to keep touring after the inauguration. I'm good at saving money. I have no debt. My house is paid off. I work with famed financial advisor Sue Zorman. She never steers me wrong. Weird Al looked back on getting permission from Michael Jackson for Eat It and said, I was completely surprised that he gave me his blessing. My manager, I guess, talked to Michael's representatives, and we heard back fairly quickly that he was okay with it. At the time, I was virtually unknown. I had 1 album out that didn't do that great. I couldn't believe we even got his attention. There's a contract somewhere in the world that has my signature next to Michael Jackson's signature saying, we are the co-writers of Eat It. Prior to that, it was tough to get anybody's permission because nobody knew who Weird Al was. And then after we got Eat It, we had that for ammunition. We could say, well, Michael Jackson was okay with it. Why are you giving me a hard time? If any one song changed my life, that one certainly did, because as I've said many times, the day the Eat It video went into rotation on MTV, you hear of overnight fame, and it's sort of a myth in most cases, but it was really true for me, because right after that video hit MTV, all of a sudden people were staring at me in public, which, never happened before. Paul Reiser was on the Everything Fab 4 podcast discussing the Beatles and said, my older sister was into them, and I have a vivid recollection of being drawn to live TV. There was just this imprint of importance. You didn't know it was going to be the cultural touchdown that it is, but you knew to watch it. The night in question, February 1964, the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. Reiser said, they made good on it with one album after another. Specific Beatles songs are imprinted on the moments of my life, all our lives really. The music is so good, it seems silly to even give it an adjective. Seth Meyers told Variety he's consistently writing down funny ideas and real-life situations on his phone and can gauge what works by reading different nuances in the audience's reaction. Seth says, it's how you feel in telling it. Sometimes even the way people laugh. You invented it and you're like, that's my wife I'm talking about. But if it's ever anything I'm worried she wouldn't love, I tried first, and if I can't make it work, there's no reason to have it brought to her. Only when it's a feasible bit. To her credit, if it works, she's always very supportive. I love doing stand-up because it's so different, not just in format, but also in topics. There's something so universal about my family, and it should be noticed that even though I bust on them pretty hard, I love talking about them. They're my favorite people, sometimes with Late Night, which is a show I love doing. I spend a lot of time talking about people I don't have a great deal of affection for, so it's nice to be out there spending an hour sharing anecdotes and observations about my family, the best people on earth. David Spade caught up with SouthJersey.com about his podcast he does with Dana Carvey. Spade said, I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't want to do it alone. I knew it was too hard. It seems very easy, and that's why there are 3 million podcasts. I didn't know who to do it with, and I was trying to think of people. Did I just get an unknown sidekick? But I felt there's safety in numbers. I was casually seeing Dana more than usual. He lived near me after always being in San Francisco, so I'd hit him up for dinners and would always crack up. And then we realized that we always talked about SNL. We have the same manager. We discussed it and thought maybe this would be a good way to start a podcast. We wanted to do it on video, and they didn't. And after a while, they wanted to do a spinoff, and I said, I'll do one if it's on video. So now they do the spinoff called Superfly. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just me and Dana. We can have people on if we want. But the core of it is it's just he and I. It's like when you were on SNL. You'd always be kind of aware of what's going on, what feels like a story that's going to stick around. So we'll scribble headlines, just stories that are funny to me, like when Kanye asked his wife if he could have sex with her mom. Really? That happened? Yikes. And then we just talk about it. What would you tell your wife? How would she react? And we just riff on that for as long as we can. And we go to the next story. And then sometimes Dana talks about what it was like on SNL this week. And then I talk about my weekend on the road. It's a little more fun than fly on the wall because Dana and I just blab like we're at a dinner. Spade also talked about hosting the Fox game show Snake Oil. I said I'm not right for a game show, and then the production company owned by Will Arnett said, we want to host. We're almost annoyed with the game. We're trying to find different angles on it. Spade said the fun part of Snake Oil, which was on Hulu, was that he had no idea which items were real and which weren't. I said, don't tell me which ones are real. And then when I'm playing the game, I'm trying to chime in going like, I have no idea. I'm not allowed to steer them. But I'm like, I could fully tell you I will guess wrong on this one. Because even when I'd watch a rerun, I'd go, I don't remember if this is real. But that's the fun of it for me. That's the hook I like. Someone out there is working on a Chris Farley biopic, and Spade said, I've talked to the writers and the director, and I think they've got a handle on it. It's a big, big story to tackle, and it's not my story to tell. It's whoever's doing a movie about it, but I'd hope it all goes right. I think everyone that's involved seems pretty cool, and they're doing the best they can, so we'll cross our fingers and hope for the best. The New York Times profiled Youngmi Meyer. Great opening sentence. The comedian Youngmi Meyer didn't mean to bring a cockroach into a downtown Manhattan food hall, and maybe she didn't, but when one scampered across her body, under the table and out in the wild, she just assumed that she was its host. Quote, I'm like 99% sure that was in my coat the whole time. My apartment is so cockroach infested that they're like my pets now. I mean, I try to clean, but they just won't go away. I've given up. They're hanging out with me now. They're coming to my interviews. Caleb Heron spoke to The Cut about growing up in the Midwest. His favorite part of the Midwest? Midwest nice. I love it. A lot of people are like, oh, they're nice to your face and mean behind your back. It's not been my experience. Midwestern people are genuinely nice. I love when I'm in Kansas City. People hold the door for you. They say, hey, how you doing? They really mean it. They really do want to hear about your day. It's part of the reason that I still have a home in Kansas City, because I literally need it. And I love that Midwestern people will put 7 foods we're straight up not supposed to eat on a platter and be like, this is dinner. A casserole is such a messed up concoction. You shouldn't even be doing stuff like that in the kitchen, and I actually need it to live. I love cheese where it doesn't belong. I love 4 kinds of meat where none are called for. I love an appetizer sampler. I love a big chili with a cinnamon roll. You ever heard of that? Chili with cinnamon roll. That's happening in the Midwest. The Midwest is our cultural capital of the United States. I don't care what anyone says. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. That'll help grow the show. Much appreciated there. If you would like the program without commercial interruption, there's a link in the show notes. $5 a month will get you this one and like 20 plus others on the network commercial free. $5 a month. It's nothing. Do it. See you tomorrow.